The Minnesota Vikings.
Kaboom.
Last year, they went 7-9, but they have made a ton of moves in free agency. They added Patrick Peterson, who's still a solid corner in the league, in my opinion. They added Xavier Woods, who's a young safety who can fill in the void that Anthony Harris left. Mackenzie Alexander, they re-signed him back to fill up that slot position. And they also signed Dalvin Tomlinson, and they also got Stephen Weatherly, all in this free agency period. So, in your opinion, can the Vikings not only make the playoffs, but can they win the NFC North, and that would mean dethroning the Green Bay Packers?
It's really hard. The NFC is such a stacked conference. You got a lot of teams that can, at least 9-10 teams that can definitely make a push for a playoff spot. I think with this Minnesota Vikings team, they have everything you can ask for. Elite receivers. They have safeties. They have corners, young corners that can make some moves. They have linebackers. They have a good defensive line. That offensive line needs work, but they have a good quarterback that's good enough to get them to the playoffs. They have a good coach. They have to just make it work. And I think dethroning the Packers is going to take a really, really, really big time year from Kirk Cousins, because that Packers team is still got some fight left in them. They still have Aaron Rodgers. I think Justin Jefferson's going to have a big year. Year 2, Adam Thielen, he's still got a lot left in the tank. Dalvin Cook is still there. I think he's going to produce. I think just this year really revolves around them young corners, making that year 2 jump. Kirk Cousins, he has to play at a great level. And I think if that happens, we're saying dethrone Green Bay. Chicago's still going to be around. I'm not saying they're going to win, but that's still a tough game to go into Chicago and then play Chicago. That defense is still there. So you got teams from the NFC West. You got teams. It's just hard to say if they can make the playoffs. I think they have the pieces to make the playoffs. I think they have everything in play for them. It really is going to come down to Kirk Cousins, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the good thing for them is when you look at their division, I think the Lions are going to have a down year just because I think they're devoid of talent for the most part. I think the Bears are going to have a down year with Andy Dalton at quarterback. I don't see them being very successful this upcoming year. So I think the division's going to come down to them and the Packers. The problem is I think the Packers are still going to be the Packers. The one question mark you have is there is that little cloud looming above the Aaron Rodgers situation. It seems like it's been resolved, but who knows? That's something that, it could go into the season. We saw how the Russell Wilson situation progressed this offseason from it was just Russell Wilson commenting on the offensive line to he would be open to trades to the Seahawks were taking calls on him. Things can progress quickly in the NFL, so who knows how happy or unhappy Aaron Rodgers is. They also have Jordan Love waiting in the wings, and, as much as you want to make Aaron Rodgers happy, you also don't want to lose out on your guy who you think is going to be your quarterback in the future by overcommitting to Aaron Rodgers. So it's a tough, delicate situation in that quarterback room in Green Bay. So who knows, maybe that has an impact, but I think the Vikings have a solid chance to make the playoffs. They bring back Danielle Hunter. They added Dalvin Tomlinson to that defensive line. I think that defense is going to be solid, which was a liability for them last year. And the offense, I think Kirk Cousins at his best can be a borderline top 10 quarterback. If you can get that out of him with Justin Jefferson, with Adam Thielen, with Dalvin Cook, I think they could be in good shape in the playoff race. The problem is the NFC is strong. You look around the league, the NFC West, I think, has 4 teams that can all be playoff contenders. The NFC South has the Bucks and the Saints, depending on how their quarterback situation looks. So, and then the NFC East has, I think, a couple of teams that'll, depending on some question marks, be in the playoff contention. So it's going to be a really tough race for those bottom 2 or 3 playoff spots in the NFC. But I think the Vikings will be positioned right there at the end of the season to, if not win the division, at least be battling for a wild card spot.
And, we still have to see if Jordan Love is good. Maybe he sucks. We don't even know. But the Minnesota Vikings will make the playoffs next year. Not only will they make the playoffs, they are going to win the NFC North. They are going to win the division. I have no doubt about that. Last year, they had the 11th ranked offense in the league and the 29th ranked defense in the league in terms of points allowed per game. Their secondary was horrible. They had no pass rush. And everybody was hurt. Danielle Hunter was out. Michael Pierce was out. Anthony Barr only played 4 games. And Mike Hughes, who you could have argued that what should have been their best corner last year, didn't play either. So the Vikings had injuries all over. I mentioned their offseason moves earlier, but Danielle Hunter is back. Pierce is back. All these guys are going to be back. Their defense now is going to be Danielle Hunter, Michael Pierce, Dalvin Tomlinson, DJ Wonnum, who's a pretty good rookie. Stephen Weatherly can be a rotational piece. Eric Kendricks, Anthony Barr, Patrick Peterson, Cameron Dantzler, who really flashed last year, later in the year. Jeff Gladney did struggle throughout the entire year, but Dantzler is a solid corner. He's a starting corner right now. Mackenzie Alexander fills in that slot role. Jeff Gladney, Mike Hughes, Harrison Smith, and Xavier Woods. Mike Zimmer made it a point of emphasis to fix that defense this free agency, and I was shocked that they had this much cap space to spend, but they did. They made these moves. To me, this defense is a top 15 or top 10 defense, especially with Mike Zimmer. Mike Zimmer is a hell of a defensive coach. Say what you want about his clock management, about his inability to adjust during games, but as a defensive coach, he is a hell of a defensive coach. He always has one of the best units in the entire league, and I think COVID kind of affected them last year. If the Vikings would have had a full offseason last year, I think Zimmer would have developed those players nicely, those younger players, and they would have had a better defense. But he didn't get that chance, and he still got a great offense with Kirk, Thielen, Cook, Jefferson, Irv Smith Jr. They just have to fill up that offensive line. But you mentioned, look at the teams in the division. The Lions are going to suck. The Bears are not going to be good. They're going to be bad. And the Packers lost Corey Linsley. Also, they paid a running back, Aaron Jones, and we know those moves tend to backfire. Their guard spot is iffy. They have to get another tackle. David Bakhtiari got injured last year. They don't have a second receiver, and they still haven't filled that hole at inside linebacker. Their run defense is going to be really bad. And I just have a gut feeling that the Vikings are going to win the division because I think every team in the division got worse and the Vikings got better. They finished 7-9 while having one of the worst defenses in the league, and now they're going to have one of the top defenses in the league. So I think they're going to take a 3 to 4 game jump. And since going to Minnesota, Kirk Cousins, he often gets trashed on, but he has a 103 quarterback rating and has thrown 91 touchdowns to 29 interceptions in his 2 seasons in Minnesota. And the Vikings are 4-3 against the Packers since 2017. So it's not like the Packers dominate those matchups. When the Vikings and Packers face, it often comes down to one play. Those games are very close. So because of that, I think the Vikings just have to get over the hump of beating the Packers. And I think this year they can do that, especially because I think the Packers, they're kind of in turmoil right now. We know the Bears are as well, and the Lions. So because of that, I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to win the division next year.
I could definitely see them winning the division. And, you know, the only question mark is if the Packers are the same team they were last year, can they fight for that wild card spot? I think it's going to be a really tough race, and you would have to hope that the NFC West can just cannibalize itself and hopefully narrow itself down to one wild card team out of that group, even though I think there are 4 playoff caliber teams out west. So it'll be interesting, but I could easily see the Vikings as a playoff team, and I would not be shocked to see them win the division.
All right, so boom, I wanted to quickly get the schedule up. So here's the schedule. Obviously, they got the Bears. I'm not going to read you the divisions. Obviously, you know how that get this out the way. U.S. Bank Stadium. That's their home, right? Mm-hmm. This is what they got at home. Steelers, Browns, Rams, Seahawks, Cowboys. This is on the road.
So, hold on. Let's go through those games. Cowboys, they'll beat.
You think, like, just outright?
The Cowboys' defense is going to be bad next year.
Yeah, okay. Seahawks, that's a fight.
That's a toss-up.
Rams, that's a fight. Browns, the next.
I think they'll beat the Browns.
I think that's a fight. I don't know if I can't. That's like a 50-50 for me.
The reason why I think they'll beat the Browns is because I think Kevin Stefanski, offensive coordinator for the Browns, was former offensive coordinator for the Vikings. I think Mike Zimmer is going to design a pretty good game plan against him, so I think they'll be fine.
They got to play the NFC West and the AFC North.
And then Steelers.
I think they could beat the Steelers too.
I think they can beat all teams.
Yeah.
And then on the road, Bengals, Ravens, Niners, Cardinals, Panthers, Chargers. That's the Chargers is the game that just got added.
So Panthers and
Wow, that's a pretty.
Panthers in the first. So okay, so let's go through the division first. I think they'll beat the Lions twice.
I think they'll split with the Bears and the Packers.
Okay, so they'll split with that's 4 wins right there. So Cowboys, I think that's 5. So go through the other games.
You want me to go back to home?
Anyone, just
Okay,
name the
so
games.
I'm at home. Steelers,
I'll give it to the Steelers.
Browns.
I'll give that to the Vikings. That's 6.
I would flip that.
I would also flip that.
I would give it to the Browns and say they beat the Steelers, honestly.
The Browns
either way, same difference.
Yeah, the Browns made the playoffs last year, but they got outscored too. Them kind of having that record was kind of like
the defense is good though. Rams with Matthew Stafford now.
Rams will win out. I give them
Seahawks.
That's a toss up.
Yeah, that is a toss up. I think the Rams game is a toss up too.
I think Seahawks. I think they might edge.
And then Cowboys, you said
yes. That's 7 right there.
And now we're going on the road. Bengals.
That's 8.
Okay, yeah. Ravens. That's a toss up.
I think that's a toss up too.
Niners. I think the Niners take that one. I'm not gonna lie. I have the Niners winning that game.
That's possible. Yeah.
Cardinals.
That's tough.
Oh my God.
I think because of the Cardinals' offensive line, it might hurt them. Patrick Peterson revenge game. I don't know.
They just got J.J. Watt.
Their secondary's not good.
That's true.
So I'll give it to the Vikings.
Their D-line has to put in real work that day.
Yeah, I'll give it to the Vikings. That's 9.
Then Carolina.
That's 10.
Chargers.
That's a toss.
That's the Week 17 game.
Yeah, so realistically, I could see the Vikings winning 10 to 12 games.
Yeah, that's why I said that's why I feel like the conference is so tough. I can see the Vikings making the playoffs, but I also see things happening and them missing it. Like we said, they were 7-9 last year, and they had a lot of injuries, so that can play a part this year. I think a lot of guys that were injured have been injured before, but this team is definitely well equipped to make a run and definitely put some noise in the NFC and get back on track. You really think they're gonna win the division?
I think so. I'm not sold on Green Bay this year.
I feel like you say that every year.
I'm not. I'm just never sold on Green Bay. I know they have Rodgers, but for me, I don't know. It's something about Green Bay that I'm just not sold on them.
He's always going to keep them in the hunt. Always.